Here's a picture, by the way. This is out of the Codex Vaticanus, which is one of the, I don't know if you saw that before. That's one of the oldest extant Bibles in the world. It's only about 200 years after Christ. It's got a picture of a giant that's being drugged by 16 other men that got ropes tied around it. Somehow they've killed it and they're dragging it towards a fire. So there's a significant amount of history. But by the way, guess what this is from? I printed this from the university website, the Archaeology of San Canyon Pueblo. Remember when I was on your show last year on the Path of the Immortals? We were talking about what we did with Mount Grant. And this goes to the story of the giants, because the giants are also directly connected with gateways, doorways. He mentioned Og of Bashan. Og of Bashan was, well, his bed is measured in the Bible in cubits, but roughly in our measurements, it's 13 feet long by 5 feet wide. I don't know how tall he was, but his bed was 13 by 5. There's also some deep occultism connected to that if we get a chance. But Bashan was known by the Hebrews as the gateway to hell. It was the doorway. They connected it to the history of the Watchers that came down on Mount Hermon and there in Caesarea Philippi. Well, we found out the same history was true here in the U.S., right? That there are locations where they believe that there are doorways, gateways. This is part of, in fact, as you know, the history of the indigenous people in America almost sounds like the Old Testament, where they talk about God creating, the fallen serpent comes, the giants come, God sends a flood. They're basically telling the same story. But, so, you look at all those headlines. The smallest of the giants that they found in the 18 and 1900s were 7 to 8 feet tall. They also had very distorted kind of features, like the men of Moab, teeth like lions, that kind of thing. And some of them are up to 16 feet. Well, the Smithsonian may have come in and got them all, but recently the Archaeology of San Canyon Pueblo, this is being done by the University in southeastern Colorado, they are investigating an area that's connected to the ancient Anasazi, those that built the cliff dwellings, and actually even their name, the Anasazi, means an ancient alien enemy, right? And the giants are drawn on their petroglyphs on the walls and all of that, right? Yeah. Well, they've been excavating what appears to have been an Anasazi community that was suddenly attacked. And whatever happened to them doesn't compare to any other kind of tribal wars that they've ever excavated, in that these people were literally ripped to shreds. There are parts of them, their bones, that are carried for over 200-mile distances. They don't even know what was going on with them. Like something tore them up and took parts of them and were carrying them like beef jerky or something as they're traveling, right? But in this excavation, and here it is, it's right from their webpage. I underlined the parts from the university webpage. They also found 2 giant Anasazi. The Anasazi were very small people, 4.5 to 5 feet tall. These are over 7 feet, just like the early giants that were being excavated here in the U.S. and hidden away by the Smithsonian. Not only that, they have polydactyly. They have 6 fingers on each hand. They have 6 toes on each foot. But not only that, their mandibles are distorted. They have lion-like teeth, and they have 2 complete rows of teeth back behind. As you know from the history of the Nephilim, this is Nephilim offspring, and they have right now, in fact, we're producing a documentary, and we're going to try to get into the university to allow them to let us film these Indians that were part human, part something else. You know what it reminded me of? Where in Genesis it says, they saw the daughters of men that they were beautiful, and they took them, wives, all which they would, which implies rape, right? They're just taking whatever they want. They're raping these women. And some of the historical books in there talk about how the women die giving birth to these monsters and things like that. Yeah. Well, here we now have evidence that the Anasazi women were also taken by something and gave birth to the very same kind of things. When we came out here, we had notes, and it was talking about the giants with the 6 fingers and the 6 toes, verses from 2 Samuel and from Scripture. So now we have evidence that didn't get covered up by the Smithsonian, and we're going to try to go there and film it and document it. Evidence that dates back.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Oh, And they date that site to the same time Moses was writing the Pentateuch, saying there were giants in the earth in those days and also after that. Yeah, 1,500 years before the time of Christ.
I'm gonna keep